When it comes to inking, there's a few big names in the industry. Winsor Newton is my personal favorite, but some people prefer Higgins. Others just enjoy the simplicity of Super Black by Speedball. FW is a phenomenal acrylic ink. Zig's Cartoonist has amazing sumi ink that I absolutely love and recommend. Dr. P.H. Martin's has an entire line of different styles of actual ink, including waterproof, non-waterproof, technical, watercolor, acrylic. It's kind of impressive what they have. Even Stuart Semple has put his own 2 cents in with Blink, the Blackest Black ink. But there's one ink that seems to be taking the entire manga community by storm, and it's one that doesn't need any introduction at all. You've heard it, I've heard it, and today we are finally taking a look at Deleter. And we're going to see if Deleter ink is actually any good and holds up to the rest of the standard that we've seen with the other inks on the table. What's up guys, my name is J-Rod of BATTLEBrawlerproductions. If you're new to the channel, our whole stick here is that we love comic books, we love inking, we love art, so we combine them all together, take a look at different inks in artistic medium. Now one thing I have to say is that this is my first time taking a look at Deleter ink, and I do apologize if I am mispronouncing that. I am trying, guys. But this is their black ink number 4. This is actually 30 milliliters for a whopping $7.70. Now I have seen it as low as $5 on other websites and as high as $9, so there you go. But this is a pretty interesting ink. Deleter is a big name in the manga industry. They don't just sell ink, they sell also dip pens, they also sell dip pen heads, and along with that a bunch of other stuff like screen printing, manga kits, manga paper. They are a heavy hitter in the manga community, so I definitely wanted to give this ink a try, and I did choose number 4 because something that's very interesting, just like Dr. P.H. Martin's, they have a large list of inks that have specialties to them so that you can actually use them in different ways. And we're just going to take a quick look at that list. They have a handy dandy one online that will be pulling up right now. So taking a look at the chart on screen, we can see they make 8 different inks. 6 are black, 2 are white, and ink number 4 is pretty highly rated, as it's not only by listing their most highest quality ink, is also waterproof, matte, and is good with an alcohol-based markers. The other inks are going to be kind of different versions of that, and I believe this one's actually sumi based, though I couldn't find it on the actual packaging itself, and that's because sumi inks tend to be alcohol resistant, have a matte finish, and are going to be alcohol marker proof opposed to India inks, which they do actually sell 2 of them. Both of them list that they're decent with actual alcohol-based markers, so that leads me to believe the others being sumi based. We do have some that are waterproof, some that have great dry time, some that aren't waterproof, some that aren't alcohol proof. So I really like the variety they have. The fact that they actually have 2 different white inks is really interesting, as most companies just have one. So very excited to actually test this out, and I thought this was a really nice handy chart. But now that we talked about the features of the ink, let's go ahead and put it to the test by breaking out our mixed media sketchbook. First dip, and I'm liking the results. It's really good. I did give it a little bit of time after shaking it because there was a lot of bubbles. That could definitely affect the actual ink flow itself. Looks like that's it. We got 2 really good solid lines. I feel like it's not really liking this. Oh, there we go. It's not flowing as super nice in my Speedball nib, but I love the lines. First off, really good, solid line, no edging. I know that can be more of a tool thing, like the tool you have will provide a stronger edging, but the ink also does play an impact on that, and I really like it. It's working really well. So, looks like that's it on this one. Now, I do have a manga dip pen, so we're gonna try it in that before we dive into the full video and I give my opinions on it. But just to show you guys, because some of you may not know, this is an American dip pen, this is a Japanese dip pen, otherwise known as a manga dip pen. I've heard it called all kinds of different names. This is just the one that I'm used to it being called, and this is a G nib. Now the difference between the 2 different nibs is pretty much actually the way they're built, the materials, and also the shape of it, but the main difference is going to be in the actual pen itself and the holder, and that being that an American dip pen only has a slot for an actual dip pen nib, and if you want to use a quill nib, you have to break out a separate tool. This is a quill pen. The dip pen that Mangeku use and that are more common in Japan actually have both nibs. So for example, this one can take this, which is a dip pen nib, and it can also take a quill pen nib, which is super cool. I absolutely love that. Now I still have these tools because I switch between my nibs as I draw, so it does come in handy to have multiple tools, but I just want to point out the differences there. So let's go ahead and try it in our actual manga dip pen. And the G nib is one of the highest rated nibs for art. It is one of my personal favorites. I absolutely love it. It's very smooth, very clean. You're seeing some of that lines right there. Love the line variety in it, and this ink is behaving really well. I absolutely love it. This nib is so precise, it feels almost like a quill nib. but I absolutely love that. Getting a little edging right there. I think it was just the speed and the angle because I'm going sideways instead of up and down. You can see right there the difference in the lines. But yeah, absolutely love how this ink is performing. Let's go ahead and try it with a brush. Now, I believe this is a sumi based ink, and one of my favorite things about sumi ink is they are really, really good, really easy, really fun to use with an actual brush. And you can really kind of move it around. It has a little bit of a thickness to it that's not present with India ink. So here is our brush, and in case you're wondering, this is a Kolinsky Mimic, one of my personal favorite brushes of all time. Just picking it up, and ooh, that feels nice. For one, it's very smooth. I absolutely love how smooth this ink is, but it's also a little bit heavy, so I can really kind of play with it. Now, that's going to create the issue where you will notice a little bit of thinning in the middle of the area you're applying it to, so you may have to go over it twice. That's pretty standard. Most inks will unfortunately do that. I have noticed that in my experience that sumi inks do it a little bit more, but man, I am loving how this ink is going down. It feels so nice. It's really, really smooth. Really good black too. You can see here it's matte, very little shine. So I can't wait to actually test to see how waterproof it is and how alcohol marker proof it is, which will of course stop what we're doing. We'll put that clip in right here because we gotta let this dry to give it a fair test. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty, so it's been about an hour and I have an alcohol marker ready, and we're gonna see how alcohol marker proof and waterproof this is. This is a Prismacolor alcohol marker. Why did I do this instead of Copic? Well, I have a lot of Prismacolors, so let's go ahead and just give it a quick little test. And yeah, that's really good. That is very alcohol marker proof. I am very happy. So there is the alcohol marker test, and then of course it will pass the waterproof test, but just to show you, I do have a little thing of water right here. We're gonna pop that open. We're gonna grab one of my brushes, so we're gonna just grab around 3 and boop, dip it again in water, boop, 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 and done. Very waterproof, very excited. So now we can go in and color our piece, and we know it's going to be able to survive process, and it's going to look super good. So yay or nay, depending on the results. If it is super waterproof and alcohol marker proof, yay. If it is not, oh no. We will adjust accordingly, but very excited to actually start using this ink in the illustration. So let's go ahead and show off the illustration and what we'll be doing today. And today's sketch of the day is of Wrath. And I did this a year and a half ago, and while it doesn't currently represent my artistic level or really how accurate Wrath looks, as I have altered his design slightly since then, I still love how this piece came out, and we're gonna have a lot of fun inking it. We're also gonna do some slight alcohol marker test on it to see how alcohol marker proof this is, so let's go ahead and roll that super time lapse. Inking this piece was fun and interesting, and I will say right off the bat, a little frustrating. Now, most of my frustrations will come in the coloring stage, but focusing on the inking stage, it was very fun, easy, and straightforward. I enjoyed pretty much the entire process and did a few things differently. I've explained before that my methodology for inking is pretty simple. I like to identify what are my areas of black and white first, and then figure out what my gray tones will be, and how I can actually guide the eye with black tones. If it looks good in black and white, it will look good in color. Now, I didn't have to worry too much about gray areas simply because I was going to color the piece, so I didn't make that a huge priority. On top of that, the only real gray work I did was the ink wash in the bottom. But when it came to making the piece as a whole, there were some really fun parts to it. I really enjoyed doing the architecture, and I purposely didn't use a ruler, and I purposely made my line more jagged than normal. The reason I did that is because I wanted the city parts to feel really old, really worn, really lived in. Nothing that's too clean, but very gothic, very dirty, very lived in. And also give it that old feel that a lot of Tampa has. And that's why a lot of my lines are jaggedy. Though, in my opinion, I definitely made them a little too jaggedy, but I still like how they came out. Now, I've used sumi inks before, and I find that they're a little thicker than normal inks, and that's because they have a resin base to it, which is really good for making an alcohol marker proof, but the thickness does mean that I have to go over the area a couple times, as it's really easy to move the ink around and have open areas of the paper showing or some gray spots. Just gotta touch up a little bit of it. And I absolutely love how it feels with a brush. The fact that it's just a little bit thicker is really fun to work with. I personally am not a fan of thicker mediums like acrylics, but I'm okay with working with them when I have to. I am becoming a big fan of high flow acrylics. I've always enjoyed acrylic inks, and I think the thickest medium I'll go with is gouache. Just bring this up because if you never use sumi ink and you're used to India inks, it's definitely a big difference that you will feel when you use it with a brush. Overall, inking this piece wasn't too much of a challenge. I really had a lot of fun and definitely enjoyed doing a little bit more experimentation. Again, those more jagged and rougher edges really does help with the lived-in, dirty, old feel of the city, even if I think I took it a little too far. But that was the inking stage, which was very smooth, very fun. Now into the coloring stage, where I did have a few problems. After I finished inking this piece, I put it to the side, and me and Sarah decided to run some errands and do some grocery shopping. That whole debacle took about 5 hours, so I figured it was more than enough time for the ink to be dried to start the coloring process. Since this was a sumi ink and it said that it was alcohol marker proof, I decided to use my Prismacolors and Blick markers, and I started working on coloring everything in. I decided to just kind of take my time working with things, and immediately when using my alcohol markers, I noticed there was some severe heavy bleeding, and man was that disheartening. disheartening. I was really bummed out by that. Because this ink, well, granted, Deleter was fair in saying that this wasn't a quick dry ink. 5 hours is more than enough time for your ink to fully dry. I personally usually give my pieces about an hour to an hour and a half just to be on the safe side. But 5 hours? That is more than enough time. I don't know why it wasn't fully dry. And that's assuming it just was still a little wet, but I had bleeding all over the place in areas that I shouldn't have, which lead me to believe that this ink is more alcohol resistant than actual marker proof. And if you look over the piece, and don't worry, I will highlight it later on in the video, you can clearly see bleeding. Not just in some of the line work, but also in areas like, for example, Raph's knees, his wings, the actual lamppost, and the brick pattern too, which was really disheartening. In fact, if you look closely in one of the spots, you will actually see the lines just straight up gone. As I was using my alcohol markers and blending, the lines just disappeared and were dissolved by the ink. It was really annoying, and that was really disheartening. In fact, I was planning to spend another half an hour to an hour just polishing up and adding more color and details, but I really felt like I couldn't because I was dissolving the ink the more I was applying. I also didn't go over the lines again because I wanted to give an accurate representation of how the ink performed. Now, I know a lot of you guys will say I just didn't give it enough time. Guys, 5 hours is more than enough time in my book, and I was just really disappointed. With that said, I really enjoyed the coloring process, and it was really enjoyable. One thing I have to say is that working with alcohol markers, they're just a treat and they're so much fun. They're semi-transparent, and the alcohol nature of the markers allow for smooth, even blends. And while Bristol board is not the best for those blends, it still takes it pretty well, and it's still fun and easy to use. I will say it can be really easy to just feel like you're not doing it right. Just trust the process and take your time. There were several times that I felt like this piece just wasn't going to work, but I just kept pushing at it and I trust my process and just kept working, and the piece came out looking really good. Again, I would have loved to put more time in the piece, but that ink really felt like I was holding back. Either way, I love how the colors came out, and I really like how the piece looks. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the piece in all its finished glory. And we're done. And guys, I absolutely love how this piece came out. While I wouldn't say it's in my top 10 favorite pieces, I'm still pretty proud of it. I love how unique it is. It's very different. We normally don't draw Raph hanging upside down, but I think it's going to be something we'll have to revisit because it was a lot of fun to do. And it came out looking really, really good. And while I wouldn't say this is an accurate representation of my current artistic level, I'm still really proud of it. And if you guys like it, definitely check out my ArtStation account where you can get a $1 digital download of this. It's that first link in the description down below, and it really does help the channel out. But putting this piece to the side, let's go ahead and talk about the ink itself, because this piece did reveal some really good positives, but definitely some negatives to the actual ink itself. And negatives really do hurt this ink in my opinion. For one, the cost. This is a pretty expensive ink. This is over $7 for just 30 milliliters. Compare that to this ink right here. This is Zig's Cartoonist Black Cartooning ink, and I absolutely love it. It is a sumi ink, and guess what? This is 2 whole fluid ounces for just $7 and some change. Granted, when I first bought it for my ink review, it was $12, but now it's come down to roughly $8, and I picked it up for $7 before, and I've seen it as low as $5 to $6. So this is a really good deal, and in my opinion, a much higher quality sumi ink, because this one was a lot more alcohol marker proof. Want to know how I know? Because when I did the piece for this, I gave it a lot of time to dry, and I still had bleeding issues, something that I did not have with the Zig's Cartoonist ink. In fact, if you want to take a look at it, here's the video that I actually used some alcohol markers with on it. But taking a closer look, and I'm sure you heard it in the coloring commentary of this video, right over here where these brick lines are, near Raph's knee, his wing, and this part right here where the lines just straight up faded away, there's some heavy bleeding, and that's unfortunate. This had plenty of time to dry, and bleeding should not have been an issue. The fact that some lines were just completely removed is baffling to me. I don't understand how this can be called their highest quality ink and marker proof when it's behaving more like a marker resistant ink. To me, it definitely behaves like a sumi ink, but a sumi ink is made with resin, which is what makes it alcohol marker proof. So something's off here. Maybe I got a defective one, maybe Deleter just puts less resin in their sumi ink. I'm not sure, but I was definitely disappointed. It is matte and I do like it, but yeah, this bleeding was a huge issue, and I would have spent another 30 minutes or an hour doing the coloring to really polish this. I felt like I couldn't because the ink was just bleeding too much, and that's really disappointing. And ultimately, what really hurts Deleter's final mark on this, because of those issues, both the price, its competitors, and the fact that it wasn't fully alcohol marker proof, this ink is going to get a 7 out of 10 on my scale. Granted, it is good, it is above average, and I definitely like the quality of it. It's just the fact that since there are better options on the market that are more alcohol marker proof, with my test doing my alcohol marker coloring, I was definitely disappointed. However, I still do like this ink, and you know what? I am open to test out more Deleter ink in the future. I'm willing to test out some of their India inks, and we will be looking at their white ink sometime in the future, so please do stay tuned for that video. But with that said, please let me know what you guys think of the ink. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? What do you think about the art piece? Things I could improve on? Always love to hear your feedback because it helps me become not only a better artist, but a better content creator. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more art and animation based content. And remember, my name is J-Rod of BLACKEST Productions. I draw with power and my own soul.